Hello, Motorado World fans, and welcome to this episode of Talking MotoGP with myself, Rob Portman. And this time, I've got two slightly more unattractive guests with me than my usual Paul Scott. But as you'll see, they're very similar looking. That's because they're brothers, and they've been brothers involved with South African motor racing for pretty much almost the same amount of time as I have. And they've now progressed into the international paddock. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Bjorn and Ryan Estment. Guys, thank you so much for joining me and everyone this evening.
Hey Rob, how's it going? It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me and my less good-looking brother Ryan along for the ride.
Okay, now I'll be honest. I'm apparently the less good-looking brother.
It's going to be that kind of show, Ryan. It's going to be that kind of show.
Okay.
So Bjorn is comfortable in his house or his place in the UK, and Ryan is driving somewhere.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between Valencia and Jerez right now.
Okay, because obviously both brothers will be
on route.
en route to Jerez for the MotoGP this weekend. We've already got Wayne Taylor, Brett Lawson, Wade Williams, Hugh, Brett, Deep Sea Diver Smith, Dave McBain, Craig Hicks, Al Camino, Gary Granger, Chris Williams, Mohammed Shaikh, Joe Alves, Yvonne Pretorius, Francois Retief, Brian Ritchie, David Callahan, YouTube user by Rob and Bjorn, Carl Butch James, Lisa Esmond.
Hey Mom, how's it, Mom? Love you, Mom. Love you,
Tell your
Mom.
mom you love her. Tell your mom you love her. Right?
Every day.
That's what I like. I like that spice that you've added on there. Jacques Claessens, Nicole Briet. We've got everyone joining. So big thank you to every single one for joining us. We've been trying to put this show on now for a couple of weeks, and eventually we've managed to get it together. So big thank you to Bjorn and Ryan. Ryan might be interrupted with some signal challenges, but we'll go with it. We'll go with the flow, and we'll get as much information as we can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, get your questions in. I really want to get your feedback, get the kind of questions that you would like to ask. You've obviously seen Bjorn, especially on social media. Ryan is kind of a little bit newer to the paddock and that, but any questions that you have regarding how they got into the paddock life, anything, send them on the comments, and I'll certainly pop them over and we can ask them the questions. But I'll start first quickly. I'll jump into you, Bjorn. We kind of all know your story, those that follow you. Professional racer in South Africa, at national level, did really well there. Moved over to the UK, raced in the British Superbike Championship for many years, had some really good success there in the Super Sport, Super Stock and Superbike categories. And then in recent years, moved on to this assistant role for the mighty Brad Binder in the MotoGP paddock. And a couple of years into the job now, just give us kind of a brief introduction to it all.
Yeah, as you say, my background or my pedigree is racing myself and learning all the ways and all the tricks along the journey. In the back of my mind, coming through all these years, I always did wonder maybe what's next, because I suppose that's in every sportsman's mind, is what comes next. And sort of, I'd say to the middle of my career, so let's say like the early 2020, 2021, I started to think, I really would like to be involved with the boys, with Brad and Darren, because not only did I look up to them as racers and at their level, they also just simply good people and good friends. So I don't know, one thing led to another, and it was kind of just being in the right place at the right time at Mugello 2022, and the discussion started taking place, and then I ended up getting the nod from Brad and his direct team, and the rest is history, as they say. So I'm thrilled about it, because actually I used to worry what was going to come after racing. I didn't know what really I wanted to do, and this is something I really do enjoy doing, and I did actually want to do. So I feel very grateful that worked out in that respect. And since the journey started, I mean, the amount of memories and moments are already unbelievable in just 3 years. Now initially it was just working with Brad, and now it's opened up to helping Darren along with these bell helmets, all these things, and just being there for the brothers. And obviously now we have young Roosh coming along as well. So the South Africans are really, really coming into the paddock in a big way, with Ryan as well, being another South African. Obviously, great to have him there. But it's just It's been a fantastic opportunity to stand alongside Brad and Darren through their ups and their downs, because that's what motor racing is full of. And, just to try and provide a support base, a direct feeling of local is like a bit of home next to the boys, and try to pick them up when they're down and enjoy it when it's good. So, yeah, really, as I said, I'm really grateful for how it's all worked out.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of questions already coming your way, but before we get into those, just a quick little introduction of Ryan. Obviously, a lot of people not as familiar with your story as with Bjorn's, certainly. I've known you a little bit of racing that you did in South Africa, but you've always kind of been in the love of motorcycle racing and motorsport. Branched off to play this funny game where you hold a stick and you've got to hit a ball miles away and then walk after it and find it. And got really good at that at one stage. That was the last I heard of you. And then all of a sudden I see this Estment in Alpine Star gear walking around the paddock with Jorge Martin's helmet and this and that and that. So give everyone just a brief little outline on your journey to where you are today.
Yeah, as you said, Rob, I raced a bit myself before Bjorn started or took on the risk and journey to England. At that point, I then sort of changed my target. In a way, it wasn't the same without him there racing or riding at the same time. But yeah, then I actually went over to England to help Bjorn's team when he was there, when he was with the Everquip Supersport team. And I was there from 2017, and then went back to South Africa and pursued the sport of golf, that one where you chase the ball that you were talking about. And my dream for that at that point was then to get onto the Sunshine Tour and play professionally, which, to be honest, is still something that's in the back of my head, that it is a sport that you can do a bit further into your life than racing. So yeah, in last year, just before qualifying school for Sunshine Tour, I got a call from Bjorn saying that there's an opportunity, and that one of his connections at Alpine Stars was looking for a new member for the racing service team. And obviously, yeah, motorsport has always been a love in the family, and we've always watched it, we've always done it. It's in the blood. So when that opportunity came, I being a South African, you jump at it and give it everything. And it all worked out. It happened rather quick though, because I got the call. I think it was a Tuesday, and the following Tuesday I was on my way to Portugal, and there was interviews and everything done. So yeah, it was quite interesting how it happened. Very interesting how it happened and how quick it happened. But yeah, then a year later, I'm still here, so it's obviously going quite well. As well as obviously with my job, we got the World Championship with Jorge Martin last year, which is quite cool.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions that are going to come your way to kind of divulge where you are and who you've been with. Like I said, it was a real eye opener for me to see at Silverstone last year, and working in that Alpine Star truck, and putting together Jorge Martin's Alpine Star helmet, and just realizing what an important role you had in the paddock. So really interesting to hear what you're going to have to say later. The first question though is to you, Bjorn. Craig Hicks. Question for Bjorn. You recently been on the grid and with Darren in Gresini colours. What are they like as a team to be around?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate in that regard that both Darren's teams, Dynavolt last year and now Gresini, have been really welcoming to me when I'm around. They're very friendly. There is definitely a lot more of a family vibe surrounding the Gresini team, which is evident. They make it known on all their media channels. The commentators talk about it, and in real life, it's there. It's quite obvious that they're a family team, very serious, but they hold on to that Gresini heritage of all the history of being just a family outfit. That said, they're very, very professional, and I think that is something I also noticed a lot when I come in the garage. And obviously, it's clear from Daz's great results and great start to the season that he's obviously gelling with them as well. So. Again, it's a testament to, it's a good outfit. They're a strong team. They're not going anywhere. They've been there for a very long time. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see Daz thrive as the season gets going. Because he's been a little bit unlucky in one or two races so far. But one thing's for sure, he's sort of cementing himself in that top 10 now as a competitive rider who is just knocking on the door of a proper result.
to kind of just emphasize on that Gresini team, I was going to ask you the question, do you feel or do you see that difference between the full factory Red Bull KTM team when you're with Brad as opposed to the Gresini team? Now, I've spoken about it plenty of times on the show. The likes of Enea Bastianini, DJ Antonio, a lot of riders, Alex Marquez now thriving in that Gresini team because of that. It's not a full factory team, but it's got that family vibe. Do you sense, what is the biggest difference between a full factory team in KTM and the Gresini team other than that family vibe?
Yeah, that's a tricky one for me to answer because I don't get to see the MotoGP side of the team. The team and the garage, the pit box is two separate things for Gresini MotoGP and Gresini Moto2. So I can't really comment on that direct comparison. But I think just from experience, obviously when you come into a factory team, things are much more serious. Everything is much more like sort of documented and controlled, if you like, rather than whereas if you're in a satellite team or a family team, everything might just be a little bit more relaxed. Obviously still very serious because there's a lot of input, infrastructure, investment all in these teams. But maybe there's just that little bit of takes the edge off at the top. And maybe it's been said around the paddock this year already, but maybe also another. If you look at Pedro's situation coming into the factory team compared to being in the satellite team last year, you could argue he was doing a hell of a lot better or even a lot more consistent. Is that pressure? Is that situation? Who knows what it is? But it's evident that a lot of riders, as you said, do thrive when they're not in the direct spotlight of being in the A team, basically.
Ryan, just swinging quickly to you. So it really was thrown in the deep end kind of thing for your MotoGP journey with Alpine Stars. So you work for Alpine Stars, I believe, based in Italy, but your primary job is to be part of the MotoGP team. You're put into this environment and you're thrown into, as you just said, Jorge Martin, the world champion from last year. So what is your actual kind of day-to-day activities when it came to last year? We'll get onto the more modern day stuff a bit later. But what was your introduction and, how were you, the South African kid coming into this paddock and all of a sudden you're going to go fetch a helmet from Jorge Martin? Surely that fanboy kid came out here to disguise that smile.
Yeah, to be fair, luckily enough, I'd actually met Jack with Bjorn before, so that was the first ride I went to. I arrived in Portugal, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday midday, and day one I was in our truck until about 4 a.m. Just getting some tips and tricks and learning a little bit of what I needed to do. And then from then on it was go. The guy that was there, my senior that was there to sort of give me the guidance. He had meetings over the weekend, so he was gone on Friday. So first race weekend, I was actually on my own, which was quite cool. Because I obviously with the experience of racing myself and working with Bjorn in his VSB career, it's not like I went in not understanding how to do it or what to do. It was just a different product to what we'd used, meaning different helmet brand, which they all a tear-off works the same really, any helmet. So the basic idea was get the tear-offs on and make sure the guys have got helmets sorted for that race. And then I headed back to Italy after that and did a bit of training in our lab. I worked directly in the helmet lab and the research and development lab, where if the guys have a crash, we take the helmet back, we take it apart, we do the inspections and see how it's handled it. That first weekend was interesting. And it was a bit of an interview weekend as well. So it was like, am I going to enjoy the job? Are they happy with how I'm doing the job? And when I left there, I was smiling and they were smiling. So I was back for the next one.
I have to say, Rob, I have to butt in there because I remember this obviously getting Ryan in touch with these guys and creating the opportunity for the job, which he then took on and smashed it. I do remember the baptism of fire he had because at that first race weekend in Portugal, Martin's dad, who's his assistant, basically was fiddling with the helmet, and something went wrong. I think he pulled the liner out, and as Jorge sort of picked the helmet up, he noticed there was something wrong. And there's Ryan in his first ever moment in the garage, FP1, and the helmet gets thrown to him. And on the camera, he absolutely calm as a flippin', I don't know what is it, just as a pro, he just went and gave him back the helmet, and everything was perfect. And we were all like like that was well handled, like well played, sir. Like that was a good, like a real pressure cooker moment straight
Yeah,
away.
it might have looked a lot more relaxed than what.
Yeah, sure.
I can imagine. I would have just melted. I would have melted in that situation because I get fanboy moment properly. I just melt in those kind of situations. But well done for that. That's clearly why you got the job. There's no doubt about it. Brian Ritchie asks a question that I suppose can go to both of you. We'll start with Bjorn, and then Ryan, you can just add your bit onto it. What are your actual responsibilities over a race weekend? So talk us through, from arriving at the track on the Wednesday or the Thursday to actually race day Sunday and afterwards. So Bjorn, starting with you.
Okay, well, basically on a normal race weekend, we'll arrive or fly in or drive in wherever we're coming from. I'll meet Brad from where he's coming from home. I'm coming from home. I'll fetch him or pick him up. We'll leave from the airport together, head to the track. When we're in Europe, Brad stays on site, so I'll drop him at the track, and I'll go later on, head off to the hotel where I'll stay with the rest of the team. We'll have dinner that night. That's about as casual as it gets on the Thursday night. Just to have dinner. We normally go and grab a bite somewhere, just me and him, or me, him, and Courts. Or now it'll be me, him, Courts, and Navy. Congratulations, by the way.
Yes.
3 binders now, not 2. And it's amazing that actually the photos are incredible. I can't wait to meet little Navy. But yeah, congrats to the 2 of them. So then post that, we'll wake up the next day. We'll start the practice. I'll obviously have prepared all of his suits, his helmets, boots, everything around the nutrition, his meal plan for the day. I'll be in contact with his media team that are, just to know where he's going or what he's doing, physio. And basically, my job from that point on is to make it just as easy as possible for Brad to focus on just worrying about riding his bike, doing his debriefs, and getting the best out of the package for the weekend. I think that's my primary job, is to take all the extra added noise, or as much as I can, away from him so he can focus on doing what he does best, which is ride a motorbike or a MotoGP bike really, really well. Coupled with that now, as I mentioned, is Darren. I'll make sure that his helmets are ready, that his bell helmets are ready, and the other couple of riders who are using bell at the moment. So that's just, I can prepare that every night. I can prepare the visors for each condition or whatever and make sure that they're ready to go. And then naturally, just because it's Daz, I'll always go with him to the grid and just make sure everything's okay. We have also a nutrition plan for him, so we stick with that. And so basically, I've got a whole list. I tick my boxes. I make sure everything's correct. I make sure everything's right, and as easy as it can be for both boys to let them excel out on track.
Are you doing just Darren's Bell helmet, or did you say you're basically the Bell service guy?
I share it with. So I basically do the overseas rounds for Bell.
Okay.
So non-European rounds. And 1 or 2 European rounds just when the guys from America can't get out. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, Ryan, your story is we've got Bjorn handling our South African Lacquer Brew dad, who we'll touch upon just now, Brad Binder. And then Ryan Estment is on the other side of the garage, supporting the Spanish shark, the late superstar that is Pedro Acosta. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, correct.
So you are Pedro Acosta's. Okay, you don't dive into. Well, I don't know. You tell us. Do you dive into obviously his Alpine Star head to toe type thing? So what is your role with Pedro Acosta?
So basically, my job as the Alpine Star Racing Service is I'm specifically the helmet service. So obviously I look after Pedro's helmet, Jorge Martin's helmet, Jack Miller's helmet, and now we have time for Asante Moto3 using the helmet as well. And so yeah, it's quite a few riders. Again, as a sort of first time getting used to it, it was quite tricky having three MotoGP riders as well. It's not just 3 youngsters, up and coming youngsters that aren't high maintenance. The guys can be high maintenance sometimes. To give them all their respect, all 3 of them have been really good. I haven't had any issues with them. When they do ask for something, get it done, get it sorted, and there's no issues. If you don't get it sorted, of course, you're going to create your own issues. But yeah, just to give you an idea, on the Thursday, On Wednesday, we arrive at the circuit. Obviously, in Europe, our journey starts on a Monday because we drive to all the European rounds from Italy. We're based about 40 minutes from Venice in a town called Asolo. It's where the Alpine Stars head office is. But yeah, we arrive at the track on a Wednesday. We set up our service truck. It's myself with the helmets. Then we have a guy, Niall, who is specifically MotoGP service. So he looks after all the guys and their assistants and the teams with all their needs regarding to MotoGP. That's, leathers all the way down, boots to their socks and underwear. Like any needs, he looks after them. And then they fix up suits as well. The guys can have a tumble in a suit and they fix it. Then we got another guy, Leonardo, who looks after Moto2, Moto3, doing the same thing as Niall. So that's Wednesday, is arriving, sorting out everything. They deal with their needs. I pretty much go and collect all the helmets from the riders. Just to give you a number, that's 6 helmets for each of the MotoGP riders. And Tyre will be running 4 helmets, 4 helmets ready at any time. And that's basically just to make sure that we have a helmet ready for all the conditions, no matter what happens. Because as most MotoGP fans know, the conditions like to change very last minute. So we don't want to be stuck with our pants down and we don't have for instance, a rain visor or rain helmet set up. I've got 2 rain helmets, 2 wet setup helmets for the guys, 2 intermediates, and then 2 full dry, dark smoke visor helmets ready at any given time. The managing of that on a Thursday can get quite long sometimes. You feel like you have so much time, but all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's 6 PM and you're still finishing some helmets. But it's not that bad. You get used to it.
What's involved with a helmet? So Friday, FP1, Martin, Acosta, everyone's got their helmet, cool. You've tear-offs last. Then it comes back to you after that session, ready for the next session. Is it a case of just a visor change if there's no actual cosmetic damage, or is it a full take the padding out, wash the padding? I mean, how do you give us a rundown of that?
No, so for the weekend, generally we don't take the padding out. I pretty much take the padding out at the end of the weekend to take that back with me, put new padding in, get it all sorted. But between sessions, it's basically collecting the helmet, make sure, literally check everything on the helmet, make sure no, EPS has come loose. So, the actual protection of the helmet has become loose. Make sure all their padding is still connected everywhere. We can be as simple as, you take the helmet off a bit aggressively and you pull out a cheek pad slightly. You obviously don't want that coming loose when you're doing 300 km an hour down the straight. So it's just, generally just maintenance of the helmets and put it on the helmet dryers so it dries the padding out before the next session. And then, servicing the visor, either putting a new one on if there's any damage to that visor, or, we just sort that visor out, new tear-offs on. But generally it's just getting the helmet cleaned up and dried up and back to the box ready for the next session.
Okay, so I'm going to catch up with some questions just now. Ryan, quickly, one question that I've always had, and it's been presented to me a lot of times, and I've never confidently had the answer, and you're the perfect guy to answer this now. A rider like Pedro or Martin or Miller or Furusato, these guys, do they take a general off-the-rack, small, extra small, medium, large, whatever it is, or is it a fitted to them cheek pad system or whatever it is?
So the helmet is identical to what you will buy off the shelf. Mm-hmm. It is the exact same helmet. It is the exact same helmet that you can buy in any bike shop that stocks them. For the MotoGP riders, we do have 3D scans of their heads, and basically it's the crown pad and the cheek pads that we have custom for the shape to fit them correctly. Okay.
Now, I've always kind of wondered that. I know with Brad's helmet, I tried once many years ago, 3-4 years ago, and it didn't even fit over half of my ear. It was like, it wasn't even an extra small, or I don't know what it was, but it was the weirdest size. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So that's really good information. I'm going to go back to you now, Bjorn. This question was always going to come up, and I thought we would get into it a little bit later, but Francois Retief has asked it here. And again, Bjorn, please, don't get, answer how you can without getting into any kind of, detail that you can't get into or shouldn't get into. But his question is, are KTM getting close to solving the chatter problem? Any whispers in the paddock? Now, this chatter word has just irritated the hell out of me since the start of this year, and I'm sure it's probably even 10 times for you and Brad and the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever ridden a motorbike and has experienced chatter knows just how irritating it actually is, because it's a weird problem to solve. It's not just a turn the preload up or change a spring and chatter's gone like this. So anyway, we obviously every time, every race, every session, if we experience chatter, or if Brad has experienced chatter or any other rider, they try their best to try and solve it. They have a lot of things going on. There's obviously a lot of data collected and the best of the best technology to try and solve the problem. The only thing I can say to Francois in that respect is it was very, very positive, or what's the right word? Like Maverick's performance gave a lot of hope.
Yes.
So it is true, and it's been widely documented that all the bikes were different in Qatar. But Maverick's ride and performance has given a lot of hope, I think, coming into Jerez. So let's wait and see what happens this weekend. If you follow MotoGP, if you really are a fan, and if you do even extra understand motorbike racing, it was evident visually to see how strong Maverick was on the bike. How he was turning, how he was stopping, how he could pass a Ducati on the brakes. It was things that we haven't seen for a while, or since Brad was absolutely smashing out the park at the beginning of 2023. That's kind of the body language that Maverick displayed there. So it was very exciting. And I think we go with a bit of hope is the right word to Jerez, to have a much better feeling straight out the box for Brad and the rest of the guys. So let's see what happens. That's as much as really that, and that's not as much as I can say. That's what we know. That's the truth. So yeah.
But Bjorn, from the outside, and this is speaking honestly as a fan of Brad, as a fan of KTM, as a fan of MotoGP, 4 rounds in, we can document the KTM problems, but 4 rounds in, and for KTM to be sending 4 bikes out to go race on 4 completely different setups. I saw Bastianini had his own tailpiece with that box thing and no wing, and Maverick had, like you said, it was well documented. That's so frustrating for us on the outside. It just seems like KTM are just thumb sucking things and just going, okay, we don't really have a plan. It's almost like panic mode. I mean, can you give us some kind of indication? Was it a plan? Was it a case of, do you know what, last resort, let's just try this? I mean, what is the feeling inside I know you're predominantly based in the factory team box, so you don't really have that much with the Tech 3, but I mean, what's the general feeling of that kind of management so far this year?
Yeah, first things first, I think they are definitely trying, and the factory and the team are trying as hard as they can, because they're there, they want to win. They're not there just to be there. They really want to win. And I think also it needs to be remembered there are 4 different riders there, and arguably 4 very different riders in terms of their styles and their history of how they ride a motorbike. So everybody is can choose their own setup. They're Grand Prix riders. They're not little kids. That they want what they want to a degree, obviously, with the help of their teams. But yeah, I just think that it's just, I think when things are going bad, everyone loves to highlight these kind of issues that you speak about. If things are going great and 2 or 3 of them put a Maverick performance in, there'd be no noise. Yeah. No matter what the bikes looked like or what was on them or what setup. So, as I say, I think that the performance from Qatar was good, and also it must be noted, like Pedro swung a few fast laps in this year already, like one-off qualifying laps. Brad's obviously put in some great rides, like he always does. Manages to recover to 6th or 7th in a strong ride, maybe 7 or 8 seconds off the win at the end of the race, which is not where he wants to be, but it's a strong ride. And obviously in America, unfortunately the bike let him down. But I mean, that would have been a hell of a ride to 5th and maybe 4th, because he was catching Morbidelli at an alarming rate there. So yeah, let's see. I mean, I'm still positive. I believe in Brad. I know just how much he believes in himself. That's probably one of his best attributes. And I believe in the team as well. So let's see. We have to get down to work. Everyone has to pull their weight, and let's try to change the momentum, because I believe that's what it all is. Sport is all about momentum, and if we can get 2 or 3 of them performing like Maverick did, then I think the noise will very quickly quieten down. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that now. I just want to get back to a question here from Jaco Das, and this I'm going to go with Ryan first, and then Bjorn, you can add your 2 cents on this. What are the stress levels like on a race weekend in your respective teams?
Well, to be honest, it can be quite stressful. Obviously, with the helmet, having 3 different riders never mind races, in sessions. Because if things go wrong, I've got to be in 3 places at the same time, which gets quite tricky sometimes because, again, like I said earlier, when the conditions like to change last minute, even though the guys do have all their helmets, they do prefer their number 1 helmet. So a lot of the time you end up changing visors and onto the same helmet they've been using. But yeah, it can be stressful if you're not prepared. I really do my utmost to be as prepared as possible. I've got the spares with me if needed. I do know that they have the helmets that they need if it really is last minute and I can't get there. If I can't make it to them in time, they can literally put on another helmet, which has the absolutely correct setup for whatever condition comes. So yeah, I don't know if stressful is the right word for me. I would say it gets a bit like sort of nerve-wracking because I know I want to be there to help. What was that, BJ?
I said it's more like a pressure than a stress.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, I've raced as well. You get the butterflies. I get the butterflies before the race, like I'm about to start the race, which is, I guess, cool. It means I care, I guess. That's one of the things I learned in golf is when you stand on that first tee box, I know how to hit a golf ball, but you're still stressing. Well, there we go. There's the word. You got that feeling where you like, I think it's more just about caring that everything works and everything goes right.
Bjorn?
I think towards the end there, he really touched on it. I think it's when you care, when it means something to you. And obviously for me, the boys mean a lot to me away from racing. Forget who they are and how far they've come. Just them as people are my friends, and fast becoming close family because we spend so much time together. And that's what it is. It's that you don't want to let them down. So you might try and make sure your preparation's perfect. Everything's there for them to do their job. And I think if you know that you've prepared, like Ryan said, if everything is there and all the bases are covered, well then you've done. There is a point where you've done what you can, and if you know that is where you are, everything will be what it will be. The problem is when you realize if you haven't done enough and then something goes wrong that sometimes you think, oh, it'll never rain. So maybe you don't, I don't know, you don't bring a wet slider and the next thing it rains and you're like, oh, but it's the one time. Then that's when that stress comes in.
Yes.
I think if your preparation's right, which I think me and Ryan try our best to get right, or we have to, that's the level that we're working at. Then it comes down to a point where what will be, and the boys will do what they can do, and just try eliminate that factor out of the job.
A very good question here from Wayne Taylor. Bjorn, Brad is very muted in terms of media. Is that because of KTM or just his nature and what he is comfortable with? He always seems to take the politically correct direction. And this is something that we've spoken about. So many people that I speak to here in the UK and in South Africa, everywhere, just saying we like the fact that he's he plays the game. He's very respectful towards his team. But like you said, with everything going on now, it's the perfect time for everyone to jump on the bandwagon and go, throw toys out the cot. And sometimes, Brad does, and he does have that what happened, shit happens type attitude. But sometimes you do want to just see, and I've seen Pedro Acosta come out a little bit more with a bit more. You don't want to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like accusing the team in that, but questioning some things. So I mean, I kind of know the answer to this because it's the way Brad is, but how suit and tie is Brad, or does he have to be with that KTM team?
Yeah, I don't think Brad has to be anything. I think Brad is exactly what he is. It's one of the things that I think a lot of people are fond of him, is he just says it like it is. Of course, in any sport or any business, there is obviously, you have to play a little bit of a political game. That's just the truth in life, not even just sport. But I think Brad's fair with what he says. And also, one thing that I know, and he taught me later in my career as well, is it actually doesn't matter what you say or how you say it. Whatever you do on Sunday, that result will say more than anything like that. That's what counts. So he's not really. I think the first part of that question was, does he like the media or something? He's not. He doesn't dislike it. He doesn't love it. He just not for him. The most important thing is to race the motorbike, put the helmet on, and do his talking on the track. And I think that was obviously Uncle Trev ingrained that into both of them from a very early age. And maybe that's why they are so successful, because they don't moan that much, and they don't, oh, what if, or if I had that, or if I had this. Like, they just get on with it and they do their best. And their best over the years has been pretty damn good. So, yeah, I think that the less said right now and the more done is the right way. And that's what Brad's really good at. So, yeah.
Ryan, over to you quickly. Obviously, Pedro Acosta last year, fantastic season. Fast rookie, was on the podium. Beat the factory boys a couple of times on the Tech 3 gas. Really, boosted onto the scene. What has he been like in the factory team? There we go, Ryan. But he'll come back now, Ryan, because your Wi-Fi. Don't worry.
Can I answer what he's been like? Can I answer? No.
Yeah. What has Pedro been like? Have you seen a difference between satellite Tech 3 Hervé Poncharoll kind of more family environment compared to full factory Red Bull KTM? Or, I mean, you didn't really spend that much time with him last year, or?
To be fair, I actually spent quite a bit with him, because collecting the helmets after the session, and this is one thing I got to give Pedro from day one last year. Listening to him give feedback to his team is quite unreal, how clear he is. And I don't think that's something I'm supposed to really be standing there for, but they're comfortable with me being there. So it's really interesting standing there for that 5 or 10 minutes, just listening to him giving his feedback. I think for him, it's actually stayed quite similar, because his direct team around him has stayed the same. They followed from gas to the factory team with him. So he's got his same crew chief and same direct sort of lead mechanics and engineers right around him. But yeah, from my side, I don't think much has changed. I think maybe just him, just a bit more mature and maybe more understanding of the situation, where last year, he did make some mistakes, unlucky mistakes, but I think that was where he got to a point where the bike couldn't really handle it anymore, the front end, because it was a few crashes in a row on the front end. But I think this year he's just maybe a bit more understanding, and as I said, a bit more mature about sort of his business and his job. But to answer the actual question, no, I don't think much has changed at all. He's pretty much the same in his manner.
Okay, Bjorn, now, are you comfy? Do you need a sip of water or anything? You're comfortable?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. So again, Wayne Taylor's just, he's a big fan like us, but he's so good with questions. Bjorn, why does Brad battle so much with qualifying? He is such an incredible racer, but when it comes to qualifying, he really has struggled his whole MotoGP career. Now, it's a very good question that you could break down. I mean, a little bit of insight from your side. From the Friday, it very much does seem like Brad knows Sundays where the main prize is. So he focuses his time on getting the bike right for 20-something laps and not just right for that. Is that the case? Does that then hamper his one-lap pace? I mean, what you break it down for us.
Yeah, I said, Jesse, how much time do we have for this question?
How much time does Ryan have?
No, look, it's no secret that qualifying, or even the practice, the PR, is a frustrating time for Brad himself firstly, and anybody that supports him and is around him. There's no, I mean, like you said, the black and white of it, the record state is not so good. back again, we go back to 2023 when everything was fine and he was on fire. He was making Q2 all the time, straight away. And it was often. It was like, oh, we've solved this problem's been solved. But then again, he had a bike that he fully trusted and he was happy with, and he really could be Brad. That's a lot of it is these guys are pushing the limits so much and they're going so fast that the smallest amounts of just pure confidence or feeling is going to make a difference. And the reality is often with Brad and missing Q2, specifically in PR I'm talking now, he misses it because he's 11th or 12th, and it's less than half a tenth of a second. That is okay. You could argue MotoGP, you have to find that half a tenth of a second.
Yes.
But we're talking about like minimal gaps of time on, let's say, all in all, a package that he's not 100% confident with. If you ask anyone, the KTM is not the Ducati right now. It's not the race-winning bike. So, yeah, it is one of those things. But I don't know. It's a really tricky question, that actually, because it can be so many different things. But I think the one thing that we have to do as a team is we have to give Brad the best opportunity to go through. And my personal feeling is that we have not given him the best opportunity to go through on a number of occasions as the team on the ground. That's my opinion. That's not. I feel like we could do more to put him in a better position or get him out at a better time or analyze more the qualifying attack, let's say, and that's I often walk out of the garage or whatever, and I really feel down because I know we didn't give him the perfect platform. Just like the question earlier about that the stress. That is when I feel the most stressed, because I don't feel like, not me, but us as the 8 or 9 guys around him together provided him the perfect preparation to make it happen. And that's the part. That's me being honest. I mean, that's just I actually said it in Qatar with my trusted guys, with the guys there, and I just said, look, we need to give him a better platform. We need to do better for him, because it's not easy, and obviously, as we just discussed, it's so minimal bits of time that can make the difference. And we all know, if you get in a perfect slipstream somewhere like Qatar, the straight's over a kilometer long, you're going to gain 2/10 just in a slipstream. Yeah. So racecraft and strategy is important, and I think that's where we can improve, hopefully coming into Europe and going for the rest of the year.
I was going to ask, from the outside as well, we often get very frustrated because, especially in the qualifying, that sometimes we're just watching the timing and you see, Brad in the pits for longer. Marc Marquez proved it on the Honda. He didn't have the bike underneath him, and he, publicly said, I've got to tag people to get fast laps. And it worked for him. It put him in better positions for qualifying, which helped him for the race. And that it's something that Brad's never done. I've never seen Brad on purpose go out and follow someone in that. But, you're talking about your own personal opinion. Do you think it's something that needs to be looked at now? I mean, has Brad discussed it about, right, while we're in this transition, or while we're in this period where we can't solve the problem of this bike, do we take, I don't want to say it's like the escape route, but do we take this route of, right, wait and send me out with an Alex Marquez, or send me out with a Pedro even, or Vinales now? Is that thought pattern starting to come in, or is that what's frustrating you? Is that
no, I think the bottom line is that Brad really trusts his team, and he really trusts him.
Yes,
so the strategy that they come up with, he'll go with, and you'll follow or we'll all follow to the second, literally sometimes.
Yes.
My sort of 2 cents was, well, if you don't change what you always done, how do you expect to get a different result?
Yes.
So, and that's what I sort of come up with now. My opinion was, guys, we need to change something just to try, because we are missing something's missing to get Brad in.
Mm.
And honestly, that for me, that is the most important session on a Grand Prix weekend, bar the race, obviously, is that PR. Because if you get straight to Q2, it makes the weekend so much easier for specifically him, but also the entire team around, because there's less, like there's, you're not in as many sessions, you're not getting as many tires done, there's not as much mechanicals. So everything is, like it's just so much easier. But yeah, as I said, it's a team game there, and we have to try give Brad the best opportunity, and then of course once he leaves, it's up to him to make the magic happen, which he's more than capable of. But yeah, I think if we can slightly improve our strategy, then I think we can see a lot better or more Q2s in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty there, because that's kind of exactly what we feel from the outside, looking in. And yeah, I appreciate that honesty. Chris D's got a question here, which I'm going to throw to Ryan. What happens when you get a rider's helmet back after a crash? So obviously, I mean, you've got to diagnose it, whether the helmet's now usable, not usable. I mean, do you touch it up? How does that process work?
Yeah, so basically a perfect example is this last weekend in Qatar. Jack had a crash in FP1 and in practice. FP1, he sort of crashed, he slid, and just at the last moment he rolled in the gravel, and it just sort of scuffed the top of the helmet. I obviously have to get the helmet back, make sure there's no, severe damage or sort of damage to the structure or the integrity of the shell or anything, never mind looking inside. Once I've checked it over, if I feel like it's okay, that was just purely a couple of little scratches on top. He was happy to use it. I was happy that it was safe to use. He then did go out and have a bigger one in practice too, and then the same helmet, thank goodness for me, because then it's not using another one. He actually tumbled a bit on it. It wasn't not a huge crash for him body-wise or anything, but just he took a couple more rolls in the dirt, which then just scraped into the sort of the carbon outer layer on the helmet, just through the paint. And then at that point, we call the helmet, it's not usable. We bring it back to Alpine Stars to the lab. We completely strip the helmet out, take it apart, do an analysis, see how the structure has handled the accident, handled the crash, the impacts. We obviously have for research and development, we've got two good helmets this year from Orgaze. Unfortunately, from Orgaze, two big crashes. That brought back some really good sort of data for us on how they had completely different crashes and how the helmets actually handle it really well. Just to put that out there. But yeah, so when a rider crashes and we decide that helmet is not going to be used again, it comes back with us to the lab. We check it out, and then basically you cut the straps off so it cannot be used. So there's no risk of it going back and being given to someone to be used, because most of the time the riders want the helmet back. Whether it's for a museum or a gift to give away to a mechanic or a friend or sponsor. But yeah, so if the helmet's not usable, we bring it back. If it's usable, they use it. Sometimes it does require a little bit of paint touch-up. But yeah, most of the time, if the paintwork's damaged, they don't really want to use it again either.
So in terms of helmets as well, it's also very interesting to note, the little bit of time that I spent at some races and stuff. You were saying each rider has kind of 6 helmets. Brad, I've been in his truck where he's got these gazillion helmets, and you just think, how lucky are these guys? They've just got these helmets. It's actually not like that. I mean, how many are those the riders' helmets? They get to take them home and use them. How does that whole system work?
Yeah, pretty much. Once it's also about sort of stock levels of getting the helmet sorted and painted, because that takes time. They don't just say, hey, we need 2 helmets tomorrow and we have 2 painted tomorrow. These helmets are custom painted by some of the best, or if not the best, helmet painters in the world. They take a bit of time. The guys do like having at least one of their season helmets for training, and obviously for media stuff when they're at home. They'll normally have a suit and a helmet, so that if they get a call from someone to do some sort of media responsibility, they've got it. But yeah, we do have testing helmets set up for them as well that are painted pre-season. So we do rather have them using a testing helmet so that if they do have spills, whilst training, we don't lose season helmets, as we call them, just to keep stock numbers up. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they are their helmets. So if he wants to take a helmet home, he takes a helmet home. We need to be told and made aware of the situation so that obviously I can keep track of how many helmets we have. Because I mean, at the end of the day, 3 helmets on a weekend would probably be fine, but it just makes the job a lot more tricky at the track. So just managing and making sure our numbers are correct to keep it, at a safe place.
Cool. Johnny Martins is asking a question here for Bjorn. Is there any truth in the story during the rounds that the KTM is primarily set up and developed according to Pedro's requirements and riding style? Now, obviously, Bjorn, at some point last year, it kind of came out that KTM had switched I don't want to say switched, but gone from Brad almost to what Pedro's doing is working. Let's go this Pedro route. Can you give us some insight into that?
No, there's nothing true in that statement.
Oh, really?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, cool.
they have to work together even more now so than ever. They have a good relationship in the box. They speak with each other. They talk about, often, I'll come back or we'll be walking by and they'll be talking about the session like two kids that are just racing for fun. So yeah, they have a good relationship. Their bikes are set up. They have their own ways of setting the bike up. Each rider has what he likes. So no, that comment is not. There's not really any weight in that comment.
So looking at again from the outside, you've got 2 very different riding styles in a way. With Brad, how he rides the KTM, a lot more backing it in, rear wheel sliding, almost. From a critical point of view, from me, it looks like he sometimes takes the long way around. And again, being MotoGP, it's fractions, but he takes a longer line compared to Pedro, who's more direct, more front end orientated, makes the track shorter and whatever. I know Brad, in some of his PR at the beginning of the year, he was talking about maybe adjusting his riding style a little bit to shorten the track and try different things. How different are they in terms of that in terms of setup and how much they talk to each other to try and, okay, well, you're doing this right, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing this right, you're doing this wrong, so let's kind of create this hybrid KTM. How much of that discussion goes on?
Yeah, I think Pedro is quite evidently a really, really big on the front end of his motorbike. He's a very front endy sort of rider, and as you discussed, maybe Brad is known for sliding the bike around, but it's not so much the sliding. It's just maybe the setup is a bit more neutral. But also, the truth is, if you look at Pedro, even this year, when he crashes on the front end every time.
Yes.
I can't even remember the last time I saw Pedro have a high side or something like that. It's this huge trail break into the turn, make everything shorter, get to the apex, turn, and then the front says goodbye. If you think back to the beginning of 2024, when Brad was really going quickly, but he was crashing a lot, more than we'd ever seen. It was similar. It was the front of the bike every time. The front end would let go because he's rushing in and trying to use the best of the grip and the setup and MotoGP, the technology. But there's a point where obviously, there's a point where the grip stops, and that was that Brad had to adjust in 24 and say, well, I can't just keep crashing because that doesn't help anybody. But Pedro seems to still be adopting the same style of attack, his riding style, but he's got to change something because otherwise the same thing's going to keep on happening because it's quite clear that they can't push the front to that much. So it's a tricky one, but it almost brings me right around back to that first question or second question, where what Maverick was able to do in Qatar is there's so much hope there, because he was pushing the front massive, more than I've seen in a long time by any KTM, swooping lines, pulling tighter than the Ducati in the switchback change of direction. Like, he was able to turn before Marquez and then turn, go right before him and then get left before him, which is the trust he would have had in that bike. Tire pressure or no tire pressure, that's not. You're talking about, like, again, tiny little bits of tire pressure. It's not like he cheated by like having massive differences where. So that's why I think he was even happy, even though he got nailed. He was like, well, actually, the bike was brilliant and the performance was good as well. So, he was second. I think it was 1.5 seconds behind Mark at the flag. I don't know how long we have to go look back to see 1.5 seconds for KTM. Probably off the top of my head, that would be Brad at Thailand in 2024. No.
Qatar.
Yeah. Qatar, sorry. Yeah, Qatar. Yeah, 1.5 behind Martin. So, yeah, it's almost a year later. I don't know. Let's see what happens in Jerez. I'm quite excited. I'm pretty sure the boys are all full of hope, and I hope it does go our way. We could do with a bit of, a nice weekend for everybody and get the spirits up and, get a bit of, like I mentioned earlier, a bit of momentum going, build a bit of momentum.
This one goes to Ryan. It's from Shane Sparg. He's had a couple of questions, but basically, are the riders given the freedom to put little personal details or lucky charm things in their lid? And also, earlier he asked the question of how much input does Alpine Star have in the overall design? Does the rider just present his own design, or does Alpine Star have listen, we need to make a replica, yeah, so we need to, change this a little bit and make it a bit more presentable?
Sorry, I lost you. I got you. I got the question. I lost you there at the end. But bottom line, the design is completely the rider and I would say management, with sponsors and what needs to be on, where the sponsors are paying to be, whether it's with the paintwork stuff. Obviously, a lot of sponsorship stuff on helmets is done on the visors, which is easy enough with stickers. But yeah, the helmet design is completely the riders. There are a few signatures that, as Alpine Stars, using an Alpine Stars helmet, you must follow, with the helmet, which is just obviously simple. The stars, like on my head, a star on the top, there's a star on the back, on both sides, and then there's a little signature here on the front of the helmet, which is just a little design. If you go and look at all the Alpine Stars helmets, you'll notice it now that I've told you. It's just the shape on the front. You'll notice the stock off-the-shelf helmets have Alpine Stars written here. A lot of the riders have sponsorship stuff here, but they still have the shape, the signature on the front of the helmet. But going for the design and little lucky charms or whatever, that's all their own design. There's no lucky charms getting put in the helmet. That obviously would not be safe. But yeah, like Jorge has got initials on the back of his. Pedro, he had a little saying on his helmet last year, which was just a little saying for him. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still playing with the stars. And then Jack has got an R and a P that's part of his design, which is obviously Ruby and Pip. So yeah, they've all got little traits on their helmet that obviously you wouldn't know about if you don't know. But yeah, the design is completely up to the rider and his team. A team, I mean personal team, not like.
Interestingly, on that one, Rob, I would also like to comment. As I think and quite a few people from the page know, my mom was in charge of the design of Brad's Boca helmet a few years ago in 23 when he won the World Cup. And she had to go through a process there where, Red Bull will not allow, the bulls have to be in that position. You cannot change them. That's like a thing for a Red Bull rider. And also, funny enough, there was a sort of backwards and forwards because Red Bull don't like green on the helmet.
The colors. I was going to say the colors.
Obviously, for obvious reasons, there's a reason why I don't like green. But so when her and her partner Nina were designing this, they were trying to put the Springbuck green in, but it was like they had to manage how much they used, and maybe that's why they put the Springbuck actually little cartoon character at the back wearing the jersey, because Red Bull weren't too happy with that. So there is some sort of guidelines, or what's the right word?
Like a template, yeah.
Yeah. There's there are rules.
Guidelines are correct because we have, I obviously being in charge of directly the helmets, we have all those guidelines from like Red Bull, for instance, what you can and cannot do.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just another little sideshow that question.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's interesting to note that, on that kind of subject, being in the paddock now, you're obviously exposed to hearing things, getting information, especially with you, Ryan. I'm going back to last year with the Jorge Martin not getting taken on by Ducati, signing for Aprilia. How much of that kind of rumors and that we purely get as rumors on the outside do you get ahead of time? Like maybe you, Bjorn, when Brad's going to sign another 3-year deal or whatever, that and now you've got to button it up for a couple of weeks, or Jorge's new lid's coming, or the replicas are coming. How much of that information do you get, and do you got to really suck it up and not tell anyone?
None.
So
I don't know anything.
yeah, Bjorn doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
That's why he's sitting back now as well. No, so the most interesting one was the championship helmet. Obviously, that's something, again, doesn't happen in 10 minutes when he's about to win the race and win a world championship. We actually had that helmet ready in Malaysia, because obviously the job could have been done in Malaysia. And that's something that I had to carry around personally and keep hidden. So that it wasn't let out. There was no pictures taken. There was no, even my sort of colleagues in the racing service team, when I had to take it out to obviously prepare it and put the padding and everything in the helmet, they were all giving me the word, saying, "Oh no, you've touched it." Oh my guys, come on! I'm the only guy that can, because I have to. I get it. Don't show anyone. Don't let it out. Don't let me see it. So to answer your question directly, I don't know much about contracts and stuff with swapping teams and stuff, but I am fully in the loop when it comes to special livery helmets coming. Obviously, because I have to get that prepared and planned and delivered on time.
Okay, cool. Bjorn, a couple more questions for both of you before we end up. One from my side. I've noticed this year with Brad's riding style, this leg out coming out more often than not now. Was that something Brad sat down and again made a mental note of, let me try it, or has it helped? Or, what's the whole thing about the leg now coming out?
I'm not sure, Rob. I think I need to ask him as well, because I've also noticed his leg sticking out all of a sudden, and I'm not actually sure. Look, maybe it's something he's worked on when he's practicing, on go-kart tracks, or even in motocross, or maybe he's felt something that he likes. But I did notice it last year. I noticed that only every now and again his leg would pop off the peg, and I would be like, oh, maybe it's a certain corner that, style of corner that he feels comfortable with. I've never really asked him about it. When it comes to riding the actual motorbike, I don't think I need to be giving him any advice. I'm pretty sure I should rather be listening to what he has to say. But I have noticed it, and it's just something that he feels comfortable with, and he's sort of put into his skill set. And I don't think it's taken away, and it maybe is giving him something. So I just think it's a personal preference.
In this frustrating time for him, obviously Brad's a winner. He wants to go out and win. It's a frustrating time for him. How is he managing that? Does he come in after not making Q2? Does he come in throwing gloves, throwing helmet, and F you and F this and F this? And how is he managing this tough time in that box?
No, Brad is never ever. I've never seen him throw a helmet or glove. He's not. That's not who Brad is. That's not how he's brought up. It's not. It's just not who he is. His respect levels and the humbleness of the guy is some that I've never seen before. He's an absolute example to young riders and any rider. Me again. I mean, I can't even tell you how much I've learned from this guy in the last few years, just listening to him and watching him and stuff. But he does say it how it is. He tells his team what he thinks, and if he feels that there's something wrong, well, he'll make it known. He's an honest man, and he's a driven, dedicated, professional athlete. The best of the best, the top 0.1% of the motorbike riders in the world. He's there. He's a Grand Prix winner. No one must ever forget that. There's not that many Grand Prix winners. Really, there aren't. So, I just really hope that we can find this this feeling that he needs, and I just hope that he can show his true potential, because it's well known in the paddock just how good he actually is. You know, that there's no one doubts that, and I mean no one. You know, so if he can find his way, and the team, and we can help him, you know, find the comfort zone, I think we'll see hopefully the very best again of Brad, and that's that's my take on it.
And Ryan, from your side with Jorge Martin, it's been a horrible, you know, start to the season for the champion. It's just such a pity. We need that number one plate out there. Martin's worked hard at it. Obviously, you got to see him now at Qatar back for the first time, and then everything that happened there. How's from what you've seen and what you've interacted with him, you know, how's he coping with this tough life at the moment?
You know, to be fair and to be honest, brutally honest from my side, very unlucky with the Malaysia crash, you know, for what happened, and then again unlucky in training. With his comeback now in Qatar, I think from my side, chatting to him and seeing him, he was actually in such a great place. Obviously not on track where he wants to be, but in his mind, I felt like he was in a really good place. He was understanding the situation. He was, you know, I think super happy just to be back on the bike. And yeah, I mean, he was enjoying it. It was, I think, yeah, just again, super unfortunate with the position that Didja was in behind him. I think if Didja wasn't there, maybe he would have had some sore ribs from the curb, because those curbs are quite large. Unfortunately, Bjorn's got me running now, so I see the track a bit more. So that's understanding those little things actually helps when you go out there. But yeah, it's. I think he was just really, really unfortunate that Didja was in the position he was in, so tight behind him, which has caused obviously the severe damage that he's had to go through, or the severe injuries he's gone through now. But yeah, I think we all, even if you're not a fan of Jorge, I think you definitely want him back on the track.
Absolutely. And just give us a little insight into Pedro. I mean, I like the rawness sometimes of Pedro and his press debriefs and the way he handles the press, and that, you know, you obviously saw introduction into the paddock. You know, how's it working a bit closer with, you know, someone that's been built up as a superstar, the next big thing, and he's still very much a kid in many ways, a young guy. How is it working with someone like that?
I think it was more difficult working with Bjorn.
Short,
like honestly.
That took 1 hour, 7 minutes and 38 seconds.
Yeah, you gotta wait for the moment, bro. No, really, he's really easygoing. Like Jorge has his dad as his assistant, Pedro has his sister as his assistant. And you know, whenever anything's needed, you know, she just pops me a message. Oh, we want to change this helmet to smoke, or we want to change this helmet to dark. Can you come grab it? You know, it's really easygoing. And if there's anything really specific, I actually ask her. Say, you know, I'll ask her where Pedro is, and I'll go and meet him, and I'll go and chat with him and ask him what he's actually asking for or what he needs. And if he's happy, you know, there's little projects that obviously I can't say what they are, but there's things that we do and we currently doing, and I'm getting direct feedback from him, you know, chatting to him personally, and direct feedback on the progress and the yays or nays of what we're doing. And yeah, I mean, he's really easy. He's really easy to work with. To answer direct, yeah, it's been an eye-opening experience, put it that way, this last year, of realizing, you know, I've always known Brad as well, and he's always just been another human to me, where the other riders were still superstars. And this year you come to realize they're just human beings that are reasonably fast on motorcycles. But they are just humans, you know, they are people. They're there to have a conversation as well. And I think they really enjoy having conversations, because, as Bjorn would know better than me, most of their time is taken up by media and team and tire meetings and gearbox and engines, and you know, they're busy with everything barring having just a social conversation.
Bjorn, last couple of little things. Obviously, a massive congratulations to Brad and Courtney on the birth of their beautiful baby girl, Navy. Also very excited to meet her one day, no doubt about it. First of all, How are your baby changing skills, your nappy changing skills?
I've actually been Googling it of late. You would never believe it, but I've been having to Google that because I think it's coming. I think it's going to have to be on the skill set.
Yeah, it's going to be on the CV. You're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go find his post from a few months back or a year back or whenever it was, 9 months, I think, to the day.
I think I would have to get a lecture from Courts on how everything's needed. Hot milk, cold milk, warm milk, this much, that much.
Yeah. You got to add it
time, wake up time.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more to add to that iPad of yours. Final question to you, Bjorn, before we finish up with you guys. And it was going to come. It's from Byron Neetling. Bjorn, what is your feeling towards KTM financially? Is it corporate smoke and mirrors, or are they guaranteed bike on the grid next year? How has that cloud kind of affected things behind the scenes within the race weekends? Have you felt anything, and what just give us some insight on your...
Yeah, I think it's no secret to anyone that obviously it's not, because it's out there in the news and it's been confirmed that there was a lot of stuff going on in the background, which was a bit of a I don't know if scary is the right, well, scary. It was a bit of a scary time. No one really knew what was going on. But one thing's for sure is they made it known that they'll be in MotoGP this year, and they'll be in MotoGP next year, and they are fully committed to the racing project. So whatever's going on in the boardrooms and wherever, it's got nothing to do with me or really most of us on the ground in the race team. What we do know is they've committed to the race team and they've committed to the project, and they are trying as hard as they can to try and turn this ship around and to get the results and to get all four, like literally world-class riders that they have now near the front or at the front. So, anyone who knows KTM, they're not a brand that just wants to be hanging around competing. They want to win. And normally when they enter any championship, they do win. They don't often not succeed. So, all I can say is that on the racing front in MotoGP, there's a full-blown effort. Everybody's pulling in the same direction to try get them back to where they want to be, which is near the front or at the front of MotoGP. So.
Good answer. You see, you've been hanging around Brad and his PR agency too long now. Bradley Broadside Johnson, where does Dave Estment fit into the Estment family? I watched him race bikes in East London many years ago and was one of the household names in East London.
So Dave is my uncle. It's my dad's brother, older brother. And, originally we as a family are from Port Elizabeth. That's where we were all born and raised. So they obviously, Dave and my dad would have competed in the East Cape Border Championship, which was mainly obviously East London and Port Elizabeth. And Dave did have relative success. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, Rob, you and Dave were teammates in his very last year of national racing with O'Hagan Suzuki, I think it might have been.
Yep.
Dave, my uncle was super.
Is that a stab at Rob, by the way? Sorry, I just want to throw it out there. Is that a stab at Rob?
No,
Rob
was the Pedro Acosta of South African racing back then.
Okay.
You couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. So I think my uncle Dave was super, super fast and very talented on motorbike, but he did crash a lot. Mm-hmm. Doesn't sound like me at all. Nothing like I used to do. So, but that's the connection. He's my dad's brother. He's our uncle, mine and Ryan's uncle.
Yeah, I had great times with him. He was a great teammate. Learned a lot from him. But he did take a lot of the budget up. Well, a great man who's committed a lot to motorsport in South Africa and his photography and everything. So great. I'm going to finish off with a question for both of you. Ryan, we'll start with you, being slightly newer to the paddock, and then we'll end off with Bjorn. I must say, in 2022, when I came to the UK looking for a job and I didn't quite find what I wanted, I went and did a 13-round stretch of MotoGP. Bjorn, I saw you, I think, at Mugello in a couple of races, which was great. I was just assisting Darren as part of me just being there, really, because I was there doing my media duties and stuff. And I must say, as much on the outside as it is the dream job to work in the paddock, that 13 rounds was enough for me, with the travel on a train, in a taxi, in a hotel, pack your bag. at my point in life with my kids and my family, it just wasn't really for me. I had the time to do it because my family was unfortunately stuck in Mauritius waiting for visas and stuff, but I had the opportunity. Great. I'm glad I did it. But I don't know if I could do that pedal life. Ryan, how's it been? Yeah, it's a dream job. Everyone looks on the outside and goes, what a lucky guy, hanging out with Pedro, Martin, doing the helmets. Yeah, it must be easy. First of all, as we've spoken about, the pressures. It's not just a case of you guys sitting back, putting a couple of stickers, and it's, whenever I've seen you guys at the races, I don't get to see you. I get 5 minutes with you, and then it's off you go again. How are you finding the travel? And it's not all glamorous, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's not all glamorous, but it's not bad at the same time. With the flyaways and stuff, the timing of yeah, well, we've just parked up. The guys are probably waiting for me to go for dinner. We just parked up in a place called Tomelloso or something in Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the travel. I mean, I've had 33 flights this year already.
Jeez.
Yeah, like, I think if I'm not mistaken, about 150,000 kilometers of flying.
Jeez.
But yeah, the timing of the flights is normally pretty good with the flyaways, so you get a bit of time off between rounds. To be honest, is a bit less. It's less stressful or less busy, if you want to call it, than the driving. Like now we're currently on day 2 of driving from Italy to Jerez. We've done just under 20 hours of driving now. We got another 5, I think, to go tomorrow. But yeah, the travel can get you, but I think if you, I go again back to like the preparation thing. If you're prepared for it, you're okay. If you think you come into the job to go jump in a plane and fly everywhere, well, sorry, that's not the case, and it's not just 2 hours to every race. You've got hours and days of preparation in sort of the office before. Yeah, it's not just the glamour of being at a race circuit, as you said, and smiling at a camera.
Well,
but yeah, I enjoy it. It is tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. I do have my wife in South Africa at the moment. So just depending on how this goes and where we go forward, the plan is to bring her over to Italy, but it's quite tricky. Just sort of figuring out the logistics of I'm not there much. So is it better being in SA with some friends and family, or being in Italy in an apartment by herself? So right now it's the South Africa option, but we'll see where we go in the future.
Yeah, it is. From the outside, we just think you guys climb on private jets and stay in, fancy hotels. And I learned that time as well. There were times I slept in a car in a parking lot because it was the cheapest thing to do that night. So Bjorn, you've been in it a little bit longer now. How are you finding it? Obviously, it fits into kind of where you are, not fully committed with a wife and kids and stuff. And as you said, kind of the way you wanted to go after your racing and that, but it can be a grind, surely.
I think it's how you manage it, really. I mean, half or more than half the paddock are in, families and, married, settled. But, it's also, you do have, let's say, there's a fair bit of time off compared to your normal 9 to 5. So if you're willing to accept that there's going to be long weekends away or double weeks away or overseas or whatever, but, there are not many jobs where you get a month off in the middle of summer to go and chill with your family and everything like that. Or, weekend here, weekend there, weekend here, all the way. So you get almost 7 or 8 days off during, between races sometimes. So I think it's a bit of a balancing act. And it's if everyone involved understands what the commitments are. The question at the beginning was, how is the life or whatever? What was the first part of your question?
Well, just like I just found it, after the 13 rounds that I did, I just found it too much, like the travel. Okay, I did it, cool, thanks. You're 3 years in now, whatever it is.
So I was going to say, I was trying to remember while Ryan was talking there, is it's also about the camaraderie, like having Brad there and Darren there in the beginning. Amazing. We're friends. You are right in what you said, is we don't often see each other. It's not like we sit there talking all day long. Like, I mean, I'll see Brad during the session is the most I see him, obviously, but he's obviously busy. Then we'll have maybe lunch together, dinner together, and breakfast together. Other than that, he's off here, there, everywhere, doing everything. And obviously I'm doing my own thing as well. Same with Daz. But then now Ryan's come along, and that's quite nice, because now, if I'm not there, maybe the boys are sitting having a casual conversation with Ryan now instead of talking about work, you know, what they're doing. They can have 5 minutes talking to Ryan and laugh about something, or I can go right, you know. And then now Riche and Arushan and Chanel and all them have come. So, you know, all of a sudden you create a little environment. There's Zan and Courtney. So, you know, and then we've got like a little South African, you know, little group away from home that you can actually feel comfortable with and just chat and you trust, which I think is the most important thing, because it does get lonely, it does get long, and does get you know, if you miss flights or if something takes extra long, or, you know, I don't know, roads are closed, you know, shit happens along the way. So you need these people around to, you know, lean on at times. And now, yeah, I think for me that's the best thing. Having that specifically directly Darren, Brad and Ryan, it's amazing, because we do spend a lot of time together. We do laugh, and we do have obviously a friendship before the racing and in South Africa in off seasons or whatever. So yeah, it's I love it. It's what I would choose to do if I wasn't racing, which I'm not anymore. So as I said right in the beginning, I'm super grateful for how it's all worked out so far. I really am grateful to be a part of the journey.
Okay, awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out, Ryan, spending €575 on airtime, and you can go
expenses.
Yeah, Alpinestar credit card. You can go eat.
No. I'll get shot for this one, because the boss is probably watching.
You can go eat your stale piece of bread, and they never give butter with bread in Europe. I can't stand it. So, but yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Bjorn, Ryan, it's fantastic having you guys on the show. Everyone in the comments here are just saying, you know, it's so much insight. A lot of people saying they had no idea it was so hectic and how involved you are and everything. So it's been a great opportunity for everyone to hear your side of the story and catch up with how you've got into it and really experience what you guys do. So it's been a great show. I'm glad we got to do it again. We'll definitely do it again, maybe at the end of the season or at some time for another catch up. And
let's try and do it when I'm not driving.
Yeah, let's try and do it when you're either back in South Africa or in Italy. But good luck for the weekend to both of you. Bjorn, please tell Brad and Darren and Riche that we love them. We're super proud of them. Keep going. Ryan, you can tell Pedro just to sit behind the boy there where he belongs. But yeah, incredible job from both of you.
Rob, just one thing on that note, exactly where you said there about giving the boys the love. Something I was thinking about since last week when we spoke is, I'd just like to say, I really hope that, you know, we see a lot of this hate or nitsa on these groups, the South African MotoGP groups and supporter groups. I just want to say to all those guys, like, please think and remember that the guys are human. They have families. They care. They're trying their absolute best when they're on the track to represent South Africa and themselves. You know, one thing I didn't realize, we had so many MotoGP crew chiefs sitting in South Africa, because, geez, I mean, the way they're going, they should all be over in Europe. But like, just please, like, just take a second before you comment. Think about what you're saying. If you're not sure, don't speak. But, you know, these groups are there to help our boys, show them the love, show them support, as you said, because there are three of them and every other, KJ in Red Bull Rookies, they are trying their absolute best to do what they can for us as a small nation in motorsport. So please just think about what you're going to say next time and support the guys. They need it.
Yeah, and on top of that, just well done to both of you for breaking into that paddock and making the success that you guys are doing. It's phenomenal. It really is brilliant. And I take my hat off to both of you.
Thanks,
guys.
Rob.
Good work.
Appreciate it, bud. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good luck for the weekend, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And we'll hope for a good race weekend in Jerez.
See you all later. Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Cheers.